Hi all, my name is Dr. Lashard. Welcome to Statistics, Spring 2025. Some of you may have noticed that I published the course earlier this semester and then unpublished it. That's because originally I thought it was a 16-week course, and then I found out that day that it's a 12-week course. So I unpublished it so that I could reorganize the course to fit into a 12-week format, and we're getting started this week in the course. So this is just a short orientation video to orient you to our class and what we're going to be doing this semester. So the first thing that we have listed at the top on our landing page is the course syllabus. And I invite you to go through and read through the syllabus. I'm just going to gloss over a few of the high points on here. So the materials that we're going to need is access to WebAssign. You don't need the physical textbook, but access to WebAssign will give you the e-text. If you want the physical textbook, you can get that, but it's not required for this course. Also, there are lecture notes. They're guided lecture notes. So our lectures will be video lectures, and these will help you through the video lectures. You can decide to use them or not. It's a personal choice. And the third thing that's on here is a graphing calculator. If you don't have a calculator or have access to one, I don't necessarily recommend that you purchase them. They're quite expensive. But there are other alternatives. So we'll use them for exams, and we have calculators that you can borrow during the exams. But when you're doing the homework, it's important to be able to practice using the calculators. And so I suggest either there's an online simulator that takes us to a calculator. So this looks like the graphing calculator that we'll be using. And it has all the same keystrokes as the physical calculator. There's also apps for the iPhone and Android. I believe it's called Calculate 84, and you can just use it on your phone. And again, it shares the same keystrokes so that you know how to do it when it comes to the exams and you use a physical graphing calculator. We have the grade breakdown and then the rest of the description of course assessments. And then at the bottom, there's this next page. So I'm going to invite you to take some time to go through and read through the entire syllabus. Let's go back to the home page. Also in here, we have a lecture schedule. Take a minute and take a look at the lecture schedule. Pretty much it's what we'll be covering from week to week. It's not likely that we'll deviate much from this. I think the only thing that might change are the practice problems, because I might add items that I think might support you in understanding the material and preparing for the exam. I usually announce those on our weekly announcements, and they'll show up on your calendar. There's the guided notes. You can certainly print them out if you want to. This is what they look like. So there's kind of some fill in the blanks. Statistics is, I will say, quite wordy. So we have these examples that are usually written in paragraph form, and it'll keep you from scribbling everything down, and it'll help you have a frame of reference to what the notes are talking about it if you don't have time to write all of it down in completion. But you can certainly print them out or buy them from the bookstore. This link has information about the Math and Science Learning Center. This page will be important for you for two reasons. One, for tutoring. You can get face-to-face and personal tutoring, or you can get tutoring via Zoom. And you can be helped by a qualified tutor at the Math and Science Learning Center. The other thing that it has on this page are the hours, and those are going to be important for us to note, because though this is an online class, all of our exams will be taken in person at the main campus at the Math and Science Learning Center, and that's on the third floor of the library. So that you know the hours in which you can go in. All you need to do is show up and bring a photo ID and give yourself 2 hours to take the exam. This here is a link to the suggested pacing schedule. I actually like this view of the suggested pacing schedule better than that one. I put it as a PDF because it's nice to be able to print it out as one page. In previous semester, I've had students who just print it out and they do kind of check it off as they go so they can keep pace with the class. So notice two things about the pacing schedule that I wrote. I didn't put more than 2 or 3 things to accomplish in a given day, and I also gave weekends off because I would like you to take weekends off, and I'm sure you would like you to take weekends off. But also, if you know ahead of time that you have a busy week coming up, it'll give you time in which you can get ahead. Or if you happen to fall behind in the class, it gives you that time to catch up so that you don't fall behind in the course. Again, I don't require that you follow the pacing schedule, but it's a good way to spread out the many assignments that we have for this course and to better manage your time. We have communication, which is important in an online course. I hold weekly office hours on campus, but I'm also available via Zoom for office hours as well. If for any reason my I'm sorry. If for any reason my Zoom page is not open and you enter the Zoom room, I get a notification on my email that tells me that someone is in the Zoom room, and so then I can join you momentarily. So just give me a few minutes if I'm not there already, but generally it's open. Also, you could certainly send me emails to reach out, and then I will send weekly announcements to keep you abreast of just upcoming assignments or any changes that occur in the lecture schedule. And then the last thing I have listed here is the student lounge, and it's just an open forum for students to communicate with each other. You might ask a question that another student might get to faster than I do. Um, I think students to student contact is important, and they are other arbiters of important information that you may have missed, or someone in the class just might know the answer and can get it to you. So feel free to click on that student lounge. This is the resource page. There are many resources available to students at Palomar College. And if you can't find what you're looking for, I mean, likely you can. There are so many listed. You can go to the actual page. I just listed a few of the top ones that students most likely use, but you can look through there and find other resources that might be helpful to you. And if you can't find what you're looking for, feel free to reach out to me because I can likely point you to the right place for the resource that you're interested in. And then this last link is register for and access WebAssign. We will be using WebAssign for our homework assignments and for lots of our quizzes. Um, this is to go straight to the WebAssign homepage, but you can access the assignments through Canvas just by clicking on them. Speaking of that, let's click on our first module, so week 1. So we'll have this sample assignment, and that's just to give us an idea of what this first lecture assignment looks like. It's the snippet, I believe, of the first 7 minutes. And so we'll look at that, and then we can get an idea of what the lecture questions will look like. And then we have, I invite you to read the syllabus and then take the syllabus quiz. And then these are the rest of the assignments that are due by Saturday. So let's get going with our sample video. And I'm already in student view. Notice here it says that it's a quiz. In Canvas, I'm required to call it a quiz. It doesn't let me call it anything else, but these are just lecture assignments. So I don't want you to feel intimidated by the term quiz. So what's going to happen is you're going to watch the video, and then based on the video, you will answer questions, and the hope is after one watch, you'll be able to get it. But you do have a second attempt and sometimes a third attempt to answer the questions, especially for ones that are computational, because it's easy just to type in the wrong thing or to do it. But you certainly will get multiple attempts to do them. Do them definitely before the due date. After the due date, you can only do them for partial credit. So I'm going to click on Take Quiz and note this at the top. So I have a due date listed. It has the number of points, the number of questions. There's never a time limit on them. And then I have 2 attempts allowed for this particular quiz. So I'm going to click Take Quiz. You can watch the video before you click Take Quiz, but I like to click on Take Quiz first, even though it'll make my quiz seem like it took me a very long time to do it, because I get a chance to look at the questions before I go on to watch the video. So I'm going to press play on the video and give you a chance to listen to the first, it's 9 minutes, and then we'll answer the questions together.
Beginning here in chapter 1, there are many learning objectives that we have. In statistics, we have to learn a lot of new vocabulary just to understand what is going on when people are talking about different statistical things. And we need to understand differences between a lot of things, like the difference between observational studies and an experiment, what conclusions we can draw from each of those, the difference between a census and a sample, differences between statistics and population characteristics. And as you can read through, we're going to be doing a lot in this chapter. But it really paves the way for understanding everything that we're going to be talking about in this class. So, if we want to make good decisions using data, the way that we obtain our data is very, very important. And as you will find out, as we go through this course, a lot of conclusions that are drawn and decisions that are made based on different surveys and data that people collect, their decision-making process tends to be wrong, or they draw conclusions about things that they shouldn't based on how they collect their data. So the first thing that we have to understand is that there are two types of statistical studies. There are observational studies and there are experiments. Before we can use statistical studies, we need to know the difference between the population and the sample. So when we talk about a population, we mean everybody, right? The population of the United States is everybody living in the United States. A sample would be just a subset of that, just the part of the population that we select for the study. If we have an observational study, we have to realize that it is a study in which the person conducting the study observes characteristics of a sample selected from one or more of an existing population. The goal of an observational study is to use data from a sample to learn about the corresponding population. So what is important in an observational study? It is very, very important that that sample is representative of the population. So we're going to be talking about what makes a sample representative of a population. Okay? In observational studies, we tend to ask questions like we want to answer questions like, what proportion of the population? Or what is the average? Or maybe, is there an association between? If you're talking about, is there an association between two different populations? What is the proportion of people in San Diego County that own homes? What is the average time commute that it takes people to get to work in Oceanside. Those are the types of questions that we would be answering in an observational study. Remember that the person conducting this study just observes characteristics. They don't actively do anything to change a response of a person. They just look to see what the response was and maybe write it down or take note of it. In an experiment, however, it is a study in which the person conducting the study looks at how a response behaves under different experimental conditions. So those experimental conditions are created by the person doing the experiment. Okay? The purpose of an experiment is to collect data that will allow you to learn about a single population or about how two or more populations differ. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of examples to see if we can decide if something is an experiment or an observational study. This first example says an article describes a study to determine if the risk of infection is related to the length of a hospital stay. The researcher looked at a large number of hospital patients and compared the proportion who got an infection for two groups of patients, those who were hospitalized overnight and those who were hospitalized for more than one night. Indicate whether that was an observational study or an experiment. So think about that. What we are looking at is we have an person who is just looking to see the proportion of people who got an infection. There were two groups, those people hospitalized overnight and those who were hospitalized for more than one night. But this researcher was only looking at data and observing whether or not the people got an infection or not. So that would be considered an observational study. In the second example, it was an article described a study in which a business professor divided his students into two groups. He showed students a mug and then asked students in one group how much would they pay for the mug. And in the other group, they were asked to answer a question, how much would they sell the mug for if it belonged to them? And then he considered the average value assigned to the mug was quite different for the two groups. Is this an observational study or an experiment? Well, what's happening here is that what's happening here is that we have a business professor who is actively experimenting on his class. He is right here collecting data that will allow him to learn about how two populations differ.
Okay, so that's the video. Let's press escape. And now we're going to go to answer the questions. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay, so the first question describes a study to determine the risk of infection related to the length of hospital stay. The researcher looked at a large number of hospitalized patients and compared the proportion who got an infection for the two groups, those who were hospitalized overnight and those who were hospitalized for more than one night. This is like the one she did in the video. This is an observational study. The second question says, In a study of whether taking garlic supplement reduces the risk of getting a cold, 146 participants were randomly assigned to either a garlic supplement group or a group that did not take a garlic supplement. Based on the study, it was concluded that the proportion of people taking a garlic supplement who get a cold is lower than the proportion of those not taking a garlic supplement who get a cold. This is an experiment or observation. Um, this is an experiment because we have people assigned to two different groups, but I'm going to click observational study so we can see what happens. So I'm going to press submit quiz. And it tells me that my score is 1 out of 2. So I got the first one, it says correct, and it says I got the second one incorrect. But not to worry, it says I have 2 attempts, and this is my current score is 1 out of 2 scores kept. So I can take the quiz again. It says 1 more attempt available. So I'm going to take the quiz again. And if you take a quiz more than once, pay attention to the items, especially when it's a multiple choice like this one. Sometimes Canvas will shuffle the position of the items, so be sure to read them carefully. So this was the one about the infection, so that one was an observational study. And then for the second one, this one was an experiment. And then we press submit. And I got a 2 out of 2. And so the score kept will be the highest score of it. Say for example, I scored worse the second time, it still will have the highest score reported to the grade book. I scored better, so the better score will be reported to the grade book. Let me go back to the home page. And so your task for this week, just as a reminder, is to read through the whole syllabus, take the syllabus quiz, and then we have these assignments to do. And again, I suggest the pacing schedule for it. There is one more thing I wanted to note about the notes. Let me just go to this page. You'll probably notice as you went through the notes, the formatting might have been a little bit different than that of the notes she used in the video. And that's because I reformatted so that you have more room to take notes. I reformatted also to make the document accessible, and I fixed any small grammar or spelling errors that I found. I mean, by no means, I'm sure I did not find them all, but I found a lot of them, and the ones that are in there, I fixed. You'll see her fix them in the video, and as I went through the video, I fixed them in the main document. So there we go. So I hope you have fun this semester, and I look forward to working with each of you, and I'll say bye-bye for now.